Welcome to Mission Evolution Radio Show with Gwilda Wiyaka, bringing together today's leading experts to uncover ever-deepening spiritual truths and the latest scientific developments in support of the evolution of humankind. For more information on Mission Evolution Radio with Gwilda Wiyaka, visit www.missionevolution.org. And now, here's the host of Mission Evolution, Miss Gwilda Wiyaka.
Hello, and thank you for joining us on another exciting adventure into future possibilities. This is Mission Evolution, where we share innovative thoughts with today's leading experts, bringing powerful information to support personal evolution. You, my treasured audience, are a very important part of this discussion. Email info@missionevolution.org with any comments or questions. We'll address them on the very next show. So take notes, sit back, and enjoy. This hour will discuss the evolutionary potential of the human brain. For all our copious experimentation, tests, and studies on the human brain, we really don't have a handle on what it is, how it works, what it's hooked up to, or for that matter, where it resides. We used to think it was only in the cranium. Now there's evidence it's also in the heart, gut, and spinal cord. It's been viewed as a processor and storage unit, the residence of a person's mind. But now there's talk of it being connected to the collective consciousness, as well as that of the individual in which it resides. Are the keys to the evolution of humankind hidden in the unknown recesses of the brain? What does it connect to? What is its role in spirituality and unity? With us this hour to take a deeper look into the human brain is Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor. Dr. Taylor is a Harvard-trained and published neuroanatomist. In 1996, she experienced a severe hemorrhage in the left hemisphere of her brain, causing her to lose the ability to walk, talk, read, write, or recall any of her life. Her memoir, My Stroke of Insight, which documents her experience with stroke and 8-year recovery, spent 63 weeks on the New York Times nonfiction bestseller list and is still routinely the #1 book about stroke on Amazon. Her new book, Whole Brain Living, The Anatomy of Choice and 4 Characters That Drive Our Life, is now available. Her website, drjilltaylor.com. Jill, thanks for joining us on Mission Evolution.
I'm excited to be with you, Gwilda.
We should have a good time today. You've had quite the experience.
I think so. And, what greater than to get to talk about mission evolution, the evolution of humankind. I mean, this is it for me. So I'm thrilled to be here.
Oh, I think we're a wonderful match. Let's start with, what is a neuroanatomist?
A neuroanatomist is someone who studies the anatomy of the brain, the anatomy of the nervous system, and the way the different cells communicate with one another inside of our brain.
So how'd you become drawn to the field? This was before you suffered a stroke, yes?
Yes. When I was a little girl, I had a brother who was 18 months older than I am, and he was very different from me in how we would experience reality and then talk about it afterwards. So I just became fascinated that two people could have such different perspectives on what had happened. And eventually he would be diagnosed with the brain disorder schizophrenia. So for me, it was a gift for me in that it gave me a real interest in how does our brain create our perception of reality and how two people can be very different.
That's impressive. So did you come to understand him and schizophrenia better as a result of studying the brain?
I certainly gained an appreciation for how two people really perceive completely differently. And then looking at the cells of brains of individuals who would be diagnosed as normal and comparing that tissue to brains of individuals diagnosed with schizophrenia, schizoaffective, OCD, panic, and anxiety, then really looking at which cells are communicating with which other cells with which chemicals, and then in what quantities of those chemicals, and things are different. So we are actually wired differently.
Do we come in wired differently? We're talking the nature nurture thing, or do our childhood experiences impact it?
Yeah, it's a combination of both. We know that an individual has to have what we call a predisposition toward having one of these illnesses, but at the same time, generally, there is an ongoing physiological experiential phenomenon that acts as a trigger or as a trigger for the disorder to actually come online.
Once the disorder has come online, is there a way to revert it back to where it's just a predisposition versus a function, operating disorder?
I think that depends on which disorder, how severe it is, and at what point it comes online. Because if someone is differently wired, let's say we're in the womb for 9 months, and during the 6th week, something happens where mom gets the flu. And during that period of time, whatever the normal processing of development may be interrupted. And then for the whole rest of the time after that, it's not like the fetal body will go back and reprocess what went wrong. From that point, there's going to be a new road taken, if you will. And so something like that's going to be more biologically ingrained as opposed to someone who may experience a trauma during the 3rd month of gestation, or I'm sorry, the 3rd trimester.
Interesting. And something can happen all along, right? Even as adults?
Oh, absolutely. There's always an opportunity for rewiring is ongoing. The neuroplasticity of the brain is ongoing. The ability of the brain cells to rearrange which other cells they're communicating with in network can all completely shift moment by moment. And normally we call that learning. So whenever we're able to learn new things, it's because the brain cells are actually communicating, rearranging their association and communication network at a cellular level.
So is the brain confined to the head, or do we think with other parts of our anatomy?
Well, we do think with other parts of our anatomy, but the actual brain is technically neurological tissue. In construct inside of the head. Now that we do have neurons in the heart, we do have neurons throughout the gut, but overall the central nervous system is going to be made up of what we call the brain and the spinal cord, and then other more peripheral systems also do exist.
And they interact, of course, right?
Oh yeah, they're all in constant communication. The heart, the brain has the capacity to slow the heart down or speed the heart up or to increase the volume of blood intake or decrease that. So we have these different mechanisms for communication, and then the brain needs to know what's going on in the gut and vice versa, because the gut is completely responsible for bringing in the nutritional value of the entire body.
And does that happen on an energetic level as well as a physical one?
Well, when you think about energy, neurons communicate through a phenomenon of transferring certain molecules with different charges, negative or positive, across a membrane. And when that happens, the inside of the cell shifts in relationship to the matrix in the external world. So, for that cell, the external world, the extracellular matrix. So this is technically described as an electrical phenomenon. And so electricity, this shift of energetic, how does this all happen? Is it all merely chemical? If it were all just merely chemical, what's the difference then between a organism that is alive and an organism that is no longer alive? So energetic is completely a part of the overall. Excuse me, got a frog in my throat. So energy, we are energy beings and chemical beings. So yes, as phenomenon shifts inside of the body, both the chemistry and the electricity or the energy shifts.
Amazing. What's the differing functions of the left and the right hemisphere of the brain?
So the two hemispheres in the brain are essentially identical at birth. And when you consider what are we born into, we are born into the present moment. We don't have a past experience, and we don't have the experience, the phenomenon of a future. So we're all in the right here, right now. And then the right hemisphere keeps processing information in the right here, right now, while the left hemisphere transfers information into our past experience, makes a comparison, and says, have I ever had this experience before? And is there any reason for me to push away from it? So the right hemisphere is going to be a right here, right now, and the left hemisphere will be linear over time. I'm so sorry. So we end up with two processing machines that are completely different in the time span within which they're functioning. And then the left hemisphere creates an identity of individual and self and language and begins to interact in the external world, with all the information coming in from the external world being processed through the identity of me, the individual. The right hemisphere doesn't have me, the individual. So the right hemisphere has the experience of the present moment where I am as big as the universe.
You had a severe hemorrhage on the left hemisphere of your brain. We have 2 minutes and some odd left in this segment, and if you don't get done doing it, we'll carry it over into the next. But my question for you is, would you mind sharing that experience with us?
Well, on the morning of the stroke, I was 37 years old. I had a major hemorrhage in the left half of my brain. And over the course of 4 hours, I watched the circuitry of my left brain go offline. So I lost my ability to communicate with language. I lost the boundaries of where I began as an individual. I lost all perception of my past and my future. So instead of my normal perception of self, I shifted into the experience of being as big as the universe. All I had was the present moment, and the experience that I felt was nothing but pure love. And for me, it was a blissful euphoria that I absolutely loved. And I did not feel a sense of, urgency while my left brain was slowly going offline with all of my abilities to communicate in the external world.
Did that happen kind of all at once, or did it come and go?
It waffled on and off over the course of 4 hours. The hemorrhage that I experienced was a slow bleed. And so slowly over the course of those 4 hours, I became less able to communicate with the external world because essentially groups of circuits were going off one at a time. And then I would lose that ability in order to function. So over the course of 4 hours, I shifted in and out. I describe it as waffling in and out of the consciousness of the blissful euphoria of the present moment, and then reconnecting to reality, saying, oh my gosh, I got to get help. I got to get help. And by the end of that 4 hours, I did get help. And when I woke up later that afternoon, the left hemisphere was completely offline.
When you were going back and forth, when you were in euphoria and then popping back into linear reality, was it very jarring? And what were you experiencing? Oops, we're going to pick up on that question on the other side of a commercial break. But it is time for a break. Jill and I will return shortly, so don't go away. This is Mission Evolution, coming to you on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net, and the X-Zone TV channel, www.xzonetvchannel.com. Hello again. This is Mission Evolution, missionevolution.org, dedicated to unification and evolution of consciousness. To our faithful and thoughtful audience, we really value your opinion and would love to hear from you. What do you think about the true functioning of the brain? Email me at info@missionevolution.org and give me your thoughts or questions so we can all share them on the next show. We're brainstorming with Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor. Her website, drjilltaylor.com. So, Jill, we were just about to get into what was that experience like as you were going back and forth?
It was actually really interesting because when I was in the blissful euphoria of the right hemisphere present moment, that's all I had. I had no recollection or disconnection, feeling of disconnection. It was just a complete feeling of love. But then as the left hemisphere would come back online, then I would feel myself re-engage with detail in the external world. So it wasn't that it was jarring, it was like turning from channel to channel and realizing, oh my gosh, I've got a serious problem. I've got to get help. And then I would do my best to re-engage as much of my left hemisphere as I possibly could in order to try to get help. But then again, the channel would get shifted and I would exist back out in euphoria. So it certainly gave me an understanding that we hear about these people who have had major hemorrhages and who have died alone. And it's, for me, it would not have been a horrible experience. It was actually very blissful and very peaceful.
Do you think that this phenomenon is somehow connected with the near-death experience people have?
I think that I nearly died that day. But that's as far as the similarities go as far as I'm concerned. I did not experience a light. I did not experience myself out of my body, watching myself. So I didn't have any of those phenomenon. But to me, again, all of that's going to end up being circuitry. Which cells went offline, allowing me to have which other additional experiences. So I think that the brain is made up of cells, and that every ability we have because we have cells that perform that function. So I can speak language because I have cells that perform that job. And if perhaps certain circuits would in the left hemisphere would relieve their inhibition off the experiences of the right hemisphere for people to have those other experiences of near death, that didn't happen for me. So yes and no.
So how did your concept of the functioning and purpose of the brain change after your stroke?
I don't think I think that the greatest gift that I received was, I had decades of training in the brain and how the brain works at a neuroanatomical level, structurally speaking. And I have a consciousness as my physiological functioning of this beautiful brain. And what I gained was that as the left hemisphere went offline, I got to experience my right hemisphere without any of the inhibition from that left hemisphere. So all of those circuits didn't just go offline, but they released their inhibition off of what was going on in my right hemisphere. So I had the opportunity to experience what is it like to exist in an absolutely silent mind with absolutely no language, directing me into organizing the external world for 5 full weeks. And that was from the morning of the stroke all the way through till 2 weeks after surgery, when the surgeons went in and removed a blood clot the size of a golf ball. And then my brain did have an opportunity to recover. But for 5 weeks, I just existed in the present moment, blissful euphoria of a silent mind. And it was really beautiful there.
We hear about people losing their ability to speak during a stroke, but it never occurred to me that we'd also lose the language in our mind.
Yes. Yeah. Some do, some don't. It depends on where the damage is.
What was that silence like for you?
Oh, expansive and open and beautiful. It was, it's like, for me, it's kind of like that peacefulness that I feel when I'm out under the stars, and I'm out in the country where there's only sounds of nature. And I just open my heart and I just feel totally expansive to all the energy of what is in the present moment. And it was just really beautiful there. It was just incredible peacefulness.
Do you feel that you have a handle on that place now that you wouldn't have had without the stroke?
Oh, absolutely. Now I know where essentially I'm going. Where is my goal? People say, well, when you meditate, where do you go? And it's like, well, half the time I'm fighting with my left hemisphere trying to make it quiet, and then I'm have to looking at my watch in order to figure out, is my time up? So I know that I didn't have any of those distractions, and so now that I know where my ultimate goal is, I actually come from that place into my new life instead of being in my old life trying to revisit that place that I found.
So it's much easier for you to access now than it would be before.
Yes, I pretty much exist in that place, and then I come back into the real world to function like a normal person.
Well, I wouldn't want to have a stroke to get there, but it sounds lovely.
Yes.
What what new understanding do you have about the two hemispheres of the brain as a result of your experience?
I've had so many people ask me, how do I find that peace? How do I find that place of peaceful quietude inside of me? And because I was going from the right hemisphere back to rebuilding the left hemisphere, and that took me 8 years to become 120% functional again. Trying to come up with a tool to help people find their way from their left brain into their right brain peace was a challenge. And then I realized that most people believe that we have one emotional system, and that the left brain is the emotion, and that the right brain is the emotion, and the left brain is the rational brain. And that's simply not true. We have emotion in both of our hemispheres. And once I realized that people didn't realize that gave me the cue to helping people understand that we have 4 major modules of cells inside of our brain, groups of cells that function in subsets, if you will. So we have our left thinking brain, which is our left rational brain that interacts with the external world with language, and I have an identity, me, the individual, but I also have left emotion, and that left emotion is about my past and my future. So it's all my pain from the past as well as my fears of the future. And then the right hemisphere has right hemisphere, right here, right now, present moment, experiential emotion. What does it feel like to have the clothing on my body? What does that feel like? How much humidity is in the air? The experience of the present moment is that right emotional tissue. And then right thinking tissue is the connection to that which is greater than I. It's kind of that is the consciousness of the universe, which is inside of every cell of my body, as well as in that right thinking tissue. So when I meditate, my ultimate goal is to quiet the voices of my left character thinking and to shift into the right thinking tissue that connects me to all that is.
How have we gotten to where it seems to me that we're very imbalanced, we're very left brain at this point as a culture. How did that happen, and how do you get out of that?
Well, it happened naturally as the boomer population in particular of which I am at the tail end of. But we valued materialism. And the left hemisphere is all about reward from the external world. So we began caring about materialism and getting things and doing things in the external world. And we weighed that over the value of the time spent with family. So the boomer population, of which, there's millions and millions of us now, we were willing to sacrifice our time of rest and refueling with family in order to put in our 60 or 80 hours a week. And then we started wearing those dark circles under our eyes as our badges of honor. And it just became the tradition of our culture. So the more we valued the external and materialism, which is what the left hemisphere values, the less time we spent in the peaceful refueling, the pause in the really establishment of meaningful relationships and connection, which is what the right hemisphere values. So we really ended up skewing ourselves off to the left, and we're still in that left hemisphere skewed dominance of our society, which it has a hierarchy of money, a hierarchy of everything, a hierarchy in government, a hierarchy in business, a hierarchy in academia. So we function on that left brain hierarchy, and we just put more and more and more and more of our time and energy into achieving those values.
Is the brain like a muscle in that the more time you spend in one area, the more built up it gets to the detriment of the other?
To a certain degree, it's kind of like that, in that cells run in circuits. And the more often you run a cellular circuit, the stronger that specific circuit becomes. And then eventually it can become so strong that it can then begin to run on automatic. And so that's how we get habitual thinking and emotional patterns of response to what's going on in the external world.
And then we're just a passenger, yes?
Some of us are more reactive than others, but we do have the power to choose moment by moment who and how we want to be, but we do have to be willing to do that. We have to pay attention to the details that will help us achieve more control and less automaticity, if you will.
As we choose to do that, whether we use meditation or whatever else, do we then expand our options as how to get back to the right brain?
Well, it's kind of like a control board. So if I am willing to pay attention to what is running on automatic in my left hemisphere, then yeah, absolutely. Then I have the ability to purposefully inhibit some of that automatic reactivity, as well as those thoughts and ideas, allowing that to stop inhibiting what's going on in the opposite hemisphere so that that can become more predominant.
Was your concept of reality impacted by the experience?
Well, absolutely. I mean, I used to think that I was real. I know that sounds a little weird, but when I lost that group of cells in my left parietal region that define the boundaries of where I begin and where I end, and I recognized that I have to have a small group of cells in my left hemisphere in order for me to perceive myself as separate from the energetic flow of the universe. That is a mind-boggling lesson in reality and the value of me, because that means that I am both the center of the universe and I am merely a speck of dust, stardust. So it was profound, absolutely profound, and has permanently shifted how I view myself in relationship to my importance, put it that way.
So you've kind of come out of the thinking that you're an island into being more part of the group mind?
Well, we all are, we are all a part of the cosmic consciousness, and I just no longer place all the value on the me, I, me and mine. I'm more of a we and us thinker. I care now more about the mission of evolution. That's why really you appeal to me so much.
It is time for a quick pause. Jill and I will return to our discussion shortly, so don't go away. This is Mission Evolution, coming to you on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net, and the X-Zone TV channel, www.xzone. Welcome back. This is Mission Evolution. Did you know our entire leading edge information packed past episode collection is available to listen or download with our compliments? Visit our archives at www.missionevolution.org for our ever growing selection of guests and topics. To find out more about me, Gwilda Wiyaka, and the other resources I offer, visit www.findyourpathhome.com. Our special guest this hour is Dr. Jill Bolte-Taylor. We're speaking about the evolutionary potential of the human brain. Her website, drjilltaylor.com. Dr. Taylor, you speak of a brain huddle. What is a brain huddle?
So when I think about these 4 modules of cells inside of our brain, I actually give them identities because they are identities. And what I realized when I lost the thinking identity and the emotion identities of my left hemisphere, and I became really clear on who the 2 characters are inside of my right hemisphere, which is going to be my right emotion and my right thinking. So I divide the brain up into these 4 modules of cells, these 4 characters, and so I'm going to run through those really quickly, and you'll probably recognize each of these because we all have all 4. This is brain anatomy. So the left thinking, I call that character 1. And that character is the part of us that organizes information about the external world with judgment, but without emotion. So it is creating order. It likes to categorize and organize. It likes to control people, places, and things. It defines what is right and wrong, what is good and bad. And that's our kind of type A personality, the one that goes to work and works. So that's character 1, left thinking. The left emotional tissue is all of our pain and all of our emotions from the past and our fear of the future. So this is little character 2. And in order for me to feel resentment or guilt or shame or anything negative like that, I am reacting to things that have happened into my past and bringing that information into the present. So this is a part of us that is not necessarily very happy. It is only happy when the external circumstances in the external world are what we want to be. So this character has a preconceived notion that, well, I'm not happy today because the sun's not shining and I wanted the sun to shine, et cetera, et cetera. So it is organizing information emotionally. Character 3 is the emotion of the present moment. And the emotion of the present moment is extremely enthusiastic and it is ebullient. It is connected to all that is because we are collectively a whole human family. The left brain is all about the me and the mine and the what I want, while the right hemisphere is all about the collective whole of how does it feel to be in the present moment. And so this is also a part of our alarm, alert system, as is the emotion of our left hemisphere. But this is about the experience of the present moment. So it tends to be our adrenaline junkie. So that's good. And it's happy and it's interested and it's curious and it's creative and it's empathic and it likes to play in groups and it just likes the experience of the present moment. And then the character 4 is the right thinking tissue. And that's the part of us that is connected to the consciousness of that which is greater than we are. So call that a cosmic consciousness, or call that God, call that Allah, call that whatever fits inside of the structure of your left brain religious structure. So we end up having these 4 very unique and interesting characters inside of ourselves. And so one of the questions is, how do your left hemisphere characters feel about or interact with your right hemisphere characters? What's it like inside of your own head? And it's unique and different for each of us, but the brain huddle is when each of these 4 characters come online and they're all in communication with one another, making the decision about who and how we want to be in the next moment in order to have our next best outcome for how we want to live our life.
So as you get that huddle going, you have more resources?
Well, you have the resources of your whole brain. Whole brain living is about really recognizing these 4 characters inside of ourselves and recognizing at any moment, any of those 4 characters can call what I call the brain huddle. And it's particularly important if that little character 2 comes online, it is emotionally triggered, it is emotionally reactive, it is pushing away, it gets loud and it can get ugly. It's part of the alarm, alert. How do I save myself from the present moment? But it just might mean that my partner just came in the door and scared me, or these little simple things that really can terrify us. But just knowing that I have these other parts of my brain that I can consciously choose to bring online gives me so much more power than just having to be caught up in the reactivity of that emotional circuitry.
So is that the skill that your emergency people have started to hone? To be in the middle of an accident scene, a trauma scene, and be able to drop in and be calm and available for the people that are freaking out?
I think that those particular emergency folks are more of the character 3, the emotion of the present moment. So they're bringing information in. There's an alarm, alert right here. But the character 3 of the emotional present moment approaches this with curiosity and interest, rather than the character 2 in the left hemisphere that sees the drama as a trauma and something very bad. So and that's a beautiful example, actually, of the different ways in which these different parts of our brain can be activated. And a lot of people say, I didn't go into medicine because I don't like blood. And it's like the people who are good at medicine, it's not necessarily that they like blood, but they don't hook into that negative circuitry wrapped around that experience.
So if we're working with you mentioned that in the left brain that the future is greeted with fear and apprehension. What about hope for the future? Where do we find that one?
Well, hope is eternal, so hope is going to be in the knowledge of that thinking tissue of our right hemisphere that knows, bottom line is, I'm a living being, and the phenomenon of this life is profound and an incredible gift. And when I exist in a state of gratitude for what is, whatever it is, then there's always hope.
What impact does the ability to go into the right brain when we're in trauma and this and that have on the physical body? Say, for instance, heart rate, blood pressure, etc.
Well, that's where our pause is. So the left hemisphere is essentially our cortisol stress circuitry. So when we push, the character 1 is pushing for more money, more this, more that. The left emotion is in pain, it's in trauma, it's hooked in the past. And those are just push systems, which results in more cortisol being dumped into our bloodstream, and our adrenal glands are on fire all the time for that alarm, alert, I'm not safe. And that deteriorates the actual health of the body. So shifting into the right hemisphere is the pause. And in the pause, the present moment is a perfect moment. The past might be scary, the future might be scary, but right here, right now, we are wired to exist and to function in the emergency of the right here, right now, and to approach it with a curiosity and grace that allows everything to slow down and for us to have healing happen at a physiological level.
You mentioned that we end up being energetic beings as well as physical ones in the electrons, where the electricity passes back and forth in the cell. That becomes an energetic exchange. Does that energetic exchange reach beyond our physical body and impact those around us?
Well, there's no question in my mind, without the cells of the left brain that defines the boundaries of where I begin and where I end. In the absence of that, I don't have a boundary. So I don't begin and end at the level of my skin. The energy that radiates from me mingles in with all the energy, all of the universe. So does what I do here influence, do the thought patterns I create or the emotional patterns I create here radiate out from me? Of course they do.
And does it come in from the outside as well? Do you kind of develop an extra sense perception? Is that why we consider that to be in the right brain?
Well, yes. I mean, I am swimming in a sea of electromagnetic radiation at the consciousness of my right hemisphere. So I am being influenced by that as I am influencing it.
Because we've spent so little time lately in the right hemisphere, is there a learning curve where we can start to literally focus on the information we want to receive when we're in that state?
Well, yes, absolutely. And I think that first of all, recognizing that every ability we have is because we have cells that are performing that function, including my ability to perceive myself as a single solid separate from that energetic. So what actions can I engage in that allow me to feel that expansiveness? And then once I'm in that, become more aware and sensitive to what am I sending out and what am I receiving?
Then do you need to bring that information back into the left brain to make sense of it and have it function in the ordinary reality world?
I think it depends on what the goal is. Can you give me an example?
Well, it's people that channel, people that are empaths and pick up information from other people. That's fine to get the information, but how do we bring it back to interface with the reality that everybody agrees on? That's more of your left brain reality.
I'm afraid that question is beyond my knowledge base.
Okay. So I guess what I'm trying to get at is how, it's the right brain sounds lovely to be in, but there's a real reason that we have another half of the brain. And how do they dance together if you're starting to get esoteric information or energetic information? How do they share that information and how can that be useful in everyday life?
Yeah. Well, and I think that's it depends on what the format is of the information that you are perceiving. I have no idea how the phenomenon of channeling. I don't know what's going on at an anatomical level, so I can't speak to that through the eyes of a scientist. But other information's coming in as far as warning and danger. That certainly is perceived by the skills in our right brain that allow us to detect phenomenon that is, if someone's lying to us, for example, we can perceive that through the right brain that their facial language is not matching their body language, not matching their tone of voice, not matching the words that they're actually communicating with. And so our right brain becomes a terrific lie detector in perception of another human being. And we get that communication at the level of our gut because we become a whole, we are an entire organism, an entire nervous system, not just a brain, a spinal cord, and nerves that radiate out.
So from the right brain is when we engage all of the intuition of the entire body and beyond.
Yes, that is the function of essentially the right hemisphere. So that's where intuition is putting together all the bits and pieces of the data and saying, does it flow together in a way that makes sense and that feels true? And if it does, then we judge something as being truthful, not being deceitful. And wisdom comes from that more open, expansive, open to a consciousness that is higher or beyond what we are, but that we can tap into.
We need to take another commercial break, but we will pick up on this on the other side. So don't you folks go away. This is Mission Evolution, coming to you on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net, and the X-Zone TV channel, www.xzonetvchannel.com. Welcome back. This is Mission Evolution, bringing together gifted people of service to the world. I love to hear from our audience. Your thoughts are very important to me. To suggest a topic or guest that you think would be of interest, email us at info@missionevolution.org. I'm sure we'll all enjoy them. To find out more about me, Gwilda Wiyaka, my school, and the other evolutionary tools we offer, visit www.findyourpathhome.com. This hour, we're sharing thoughts with Dr. Jill Bolte-Taylor. Her website, drjilltaylor.com. Jill, we were just, where were we? We were getting into how we described, or you described, how the right brain perceives whole body and present moment and can pick up maydays and dangers going on. Then how does it communicate that to the left brain?
So there are over 300 million axonal fibers that are running between neurons in the right hemisphere and the left hemisphere. And so the right hemisphere and the left hemisphere, when you look at them structurally, the bumps are very specifically named. They're called the gyri, and they all have a specific name. And then the lines in between those are the sulci, and those have names as well. So the right hemisphere and the left hemisphere are essentially mirror images of one another, but they're different in their overall development. So there are differences between the two, not just in how they function, but also, of course, then in that structure. So a group of specific cells in the left hemisphere will send fibers to that specific group of cells in the right hemisphere and vice versa. And that way, then they know what's going on. And one is usually inhibiting the other so that they're back and forth ricocheting, if you will, around in there about which cells are dominant in any moment in time. So the two hemispheres are designed to specifically coordinate their efforts as well as communicate so that they know what's going on.
That's phenomenal. And that's something that we can also develop. Is that true?
Well, we can absolutely develop it because we can decide, I want to spend more time in my right hemisphere and I want to spend more time in the present moment. And that's really the easiest way to get from one hemisphere into the other hemisphere is to focus in the present moment. Focusing in the present moment allows that right brain to become more open and expansive, to bring in more volumes of information without any judgment on it. So I don't care in my right hemisphere what the weather is. I'm just glad I'm alive and able to experience the rain or the cold or the warmth or whatever it is. The left hemisphere is going to come in and say, well, I'm going to judge that I'm only comfortable between these temperatures and I want the sun to be, out and I don't want the rain and blah, blah, blah. So these two hemispheres are dancing in and out of one another, and we absolutely have the power to choose to spend more time in the characters of the present moment if we want to become more balanced people.
So it sounds like intention is very important here.
Oh, intention is everything. First, awareness, willingness, and then setting that intention, yes.
Amazing. So that means we have to become more conscious of what we're intending. Aren't we kind of unconscious in that?
Well, I think we're pretty unconscious in our left brain. And since most of us are spending so much time in just running on automatic, we're not really thinking about what we're thinking. We're not thinking about what we're feeling emotionally of the past. How much time do we spend in our past? It's amazing. It's like that's become the default, my past or my future, instead of the right here, right now, present moment. And right here, right now, it feels completely differently inside of our body. It's lighter. We are available. We're paying attention to simply being, the value of being. We hook into our personal joy. We hook into our personal gratitude for our existence. And it's not about what is happening in the external world and how I judge it. It's merely simply experiencing the present moment.
So, what did your stroke teach you about spirituality?
Well, I think that it taught me that our ability to be connected to something that is greater than we are, which is kind of the ultimate goal, I think, of any religion, that the story of religion, the dogma of the practice of religion is created by the left hemisphere cells. So if I'm Christian, then I believe the dogma of Christianity, and that becomes the story within which I function and I build my world. And then I pray. And as I pray, research has actually shown that when Buddhist monks go into meditation, or Franciscan nuns go into prayer, that what happens is a silencing, a quieting of the language centers in that left hemisphere, and then they experience being at one with their God, or being at one with the consciousness of the universe. So it's not that something turns on; it's more that something turns off, and that is just the ongoing language centers and all that routinizing circuitry of the left hemisphere.
It makes things make a lot more sense to me as you're speaking this. So the religious, I don't want to say dogma, religious rituals are
Yes.
designed to get you out of the left brain and into the right so that you can access.
Yeah, one of the beautiful things about using a rosary or using a mantra is the repetition of something. And so if I say a prayer or I say a mantra, and I repeat that over and over again, then it kind of preoccupies that language center from not really thinking about what did I have for breakfast and why did I pick these shoes that I picked because they're so uncomfortable. It stops all that routinizing, and it hooks it into a pattern that I can then shift my focus away from that into the experience of the present moment. And again, that's where my intention is set. My intention is not simply to hook into a repetition of a mantra. The intention is to use the mantra to kind of preoccupy that circuitry so I can expand into the openness of that right hemisphere experience of my God, or of my whatever it is I'm in search of.
What did your experience teach you about evolution, and how has it motivated you in that direction?
Well, to me, evolution is just, if you look at the evolution of the mammalian nervous system, what happens is there's a critter and there is a nervous system of that creature. And then over time, eons of time, the kinks get worked out and they get stream flow between the different neurons. And then for the human system, other mammals are the addition of the emotional tissue on top of the reptilian brain. And so then over time, the kinks get worked out between that emotional tissue and the tissue below, and then new tissue gets added on top. And that's the difference between a human mammal and other mammals. So other mammals do have our emotional limbic tissue, but the human tissue has new tissue of thinking added on top. And that new thinking tissue is added on to refine and differentiate the tissue below. So the human ends up with these two emotional groups of cells and these two thinking groups of cells. And those match those four characters that I talked about. So to me, evolution then is working the kinks out between the tissue, the newly added on, and the tissue below, as well as the thinking to thinking of the two hemispheres and the emotion and emotion of the two hemispheres. And this is what I describe then as the brain huddle. The action of the brain huddle calls all four different groups of cells online. And when those all four characters are in conversation, making a conscious choice about what decision, what action do I want to exhibit in the next moment, then I begin to live a completely conscious life. And it's going to be the life that I choose because I have all four characters in that conversation.
And how do you think that'll change our interaction with the world and each other?
I think as soon as character 4, which is our connection to all that is, the consciousness that is of the universe, that peaceful, loving nature, as soon as that character gets called into a brain huddle, our decisions will be more loving.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Taylor, what is your mission?
I think my mission is to help people recognize that we have so much more power over what's going on inside of our brains than we have ever been taught. And if we truly want to find higher levels of peace in our hearts, recognizing these different consciousnesses and that we have the ability to know them, to create healthy relationships inside of our own heads, and then ultimately we will evolve into the people we want to be.
What do you feel was the greatest gift from the adverse experience of your stroke and 8 years of recovery?
I think that the greatest gift was relief from the pain of my past. I think as soon as my left pain went offline, I got to begin again and reevaluate everything without running it through the filter of my past trauma.
Your recovery sounds like it was very long and difficult. What was the driving force for you?
You know, it's interesting. When I lost the left hemisphere and I was as big as the universe, I was in just this state of being the universe, and it was magnificent there. But there was this tiny little part of me that was saying, I survived, not in language, but this little impetus of joy that I was still alive. And it was willing to go through the agony of recovery in order to try, even just try to begin that process of recovery.
You were unable to speak even to your loved ones. Did you recognize them?
No, I knew nothing. I didn't know what a mother was, much less who my mother was. And my mother had actually been my best friend throughout my whole life. So it was a complete reset of me emotionally and any awareness. I became essentially an infant in a woman's body.
Do you feel that experience changed your relationships because you set aside the left brain functioning for 8 years?
Yeah, absolutely. Everything changed. I came in with love, and because I didn't have a left hemisphere, I didn't know who I had been mad at or who I had resented. I knew nothing. I was rebuilding a whole new world. And any of my loved ones who came back into my life and wanted to reconstruct a relationship with me, it was I had no reason to not just be filled with love and joy in those.
What a gift. We have less than a minute left. What would you like to share with Mission Evolution's worldwide audience?
I think just that we are this absolutely amazing miracle of some 50 trillion molecular geniuses making up our form, and we are beautiful beyond it's mind-boggling. And when we allow ourselves to actually get to know the different parts of our brain, then we really get to embody the best of us, and to figure out, how do I take this structure of what I am and really evolve into what I want to be in the world.
Well, unfortunately, we are out of time, Jill. Thank you so, so much for coming on the show and sharing your experience with us.
Thank you, Gwilda. I appreciate it.
Our guest this hour has been neuroanatomist Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor. Jill is the author of My Stroke of Insight and her latest book, Whole Brain Living, The Anatomy of Choice and the 4 Characters That Drive Our Life. Her website, drjilltaylor.com. Remember, our entire information-packed past episode collection is available for listen or download free of charge. Visit our archives at www.missionevolution.org for our ever-growing selection of guests and topics. This has been Mission Evolution with Gwilda Wiyaka, coming to you on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net, and the X-Zone TV channel, www.xzonetvchannel.com. Join us next time as the mission continues, bringing information, resources, and support to an evolving world.